Tyler Jones here with you, the somewhat capable host, as we are talking surprise cut candidates for your Seattle Seahawks. I got 5 players the Seahawks could surprise everybody and move on from this offseason in order to save some cash. Because what we're about to show you here, Seahawks need some money. They need to go find some money. So we got some potential options for Seattle to save some cash. That way they can be able to potentially upgrade other positions. Before we do, if you're ready for the Seahawks season to start, here's what I need you to do. I need you to spam S in the comments section. I want to get 500 S's in the comments section right now. If you love your Seattle Seahawks, if you're ready for game day, spam S in the comments section. It's our calling card on game days, rallies of the troops. It's our way of getting excited for what's ahead for your Seattle Seahawks. Spam S in the comments section, and we'll get started with today's show. Let's talk cap space. Here's what we're looking at here, folks. The Seahawks have a grand total of $261,000 in cap space. I'm willing to bet that there's probably some of you watching this program that probably have more money in your bank account than the Seahawks have for cap space. Not a whole lot of money right now. They need to go find some cash. And so if the Seahawks were to make the cuts that we're talking about today, we're looking at them saving close to $12 million, which would free up a lot of money. And, you know, we've talked about several players over the last couple of weeks that the Seahawks could bring in. You need money to be able to do that. You can't sign anybody right now. So if you get that extra $12 million, that would go a long way for the Seahawks team. So without further ado, let's get started with Mike Jackson. Yes, I know what some of you may be thinking. Didn't Mike Jackson just get a contract restructure? Isn't that going to keep him in Seattle? Well, yes, he did get a contract restructure, but that doesn't guarantee anything for Mike Jackson. Mike Jackson is going to go into a very competitive competition for playing time this offseason, as you have a loaded corner room with Rick Woolen and Devin Witherspoon, Trey Brown. You got the rookies coming in. And Mike Jackson, if you recall last year, was in great position. There was a lot of excitement about Mike Jackson, and then he just laid an egg, just looked terrible in the preseason last year. Ultimately ended up losing his job to Trey Brown. Did end up getting to start again, but it was a roller coaster for Mike Jackson. Now, if the Seahawks were to move on from Mike Jackson, there's some real money that could be saved. They could save $3.11 million against the cap, and on top of that, not have to take any dead cap hit either if they were to move on from Mike Jackson. So let's just say, for all intents and purposes, if the Seahawks like these other guys better, if Trey Brown or some of these other guys outplay Mike Jackson, then you could move on from him and not cost you anything at all. Save some cash on that front. So $3.1 million, that could be a good fit for Seattle to save some money. Let's ask you, though. I like Mike Jackson. I tend to lean towards him staying rather than cutting him for nothing. What do you guys think? Should the Seahawks cut Mike Jackson? Y for yes, N for no. Way in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Today's show is sponsored by PrizePicks. PrizePicks, the place to go for daily fantasy made easy. Here's how it works. Choose 2 or more players on any given category. Get the choice of more or less, whether you are talking fantasy points, /maybe it's goals in hockey, home runs in baseball, rebounds in basketball, all sorts of different categories to choose from. Go to PrizePicks.com/CLNS, promo code CLNS for a $100 deposit match on your first entry. And here's what I got. I'm going with our boy DK Metcalf to have more than 1,025.5 receiving yards this season. Lamar Jackson to have more than 3,600.5 passing yards. If I put $20 down and this hits, that's going to turn into $60 on PrizePicks. Play along with me. PrizePicks.com/CLNS, promo code CLNS for that $100 deposit match. The link is in the comments and description of today's video. Download PrizePicks today. You'll be glad you did. Next up, we find Darrell Taylor making the list for the Seattle Seahawks. Darrell Taylor, man, Things have been up and down. We've seen him have some success where he had 9+ sacks for this Seahawks team in a single season. He can get after the quarterback, but he's kind of a one-trick pony, if you will. He doesn't do well in coverage. He doesn't stop the run well. Doesn't seem like the ideal fit for what Mike Macdonald is looking for. He needs defensive players that can do it all, right? That's been his calling card, is guys that do everything well, and that's not the case with Darrell Taylor, and it's a very competitive position that he's at right now. When you're talking about competing with Boye Mafe, Uchenna Nwosu, Derek Hall, among others for playing time, Darrell Taylor might find himself as the odd man out. Cap savings, if you move on from Darrell Taylor, you're looking at about $3.1 million, with a dead cap hit that's very minimal. Just $20,000 is all that he would count against the cap for this season. So, although Darrell Taylor had 9+ sacks a couple seasons ago, he's very movable without potentially costing you too much. Next up, we find Jon Rhattigan. Jon Rhattigan feels like he's been with the Seahawks for quite a bit, but we've seen Seattle completely retool this linebacker room this offseason, bringing in Terrell Dodson, Jerome Baker, and a big emphasis when it comes to coverage linebackers. And with the recent selection of Therese Knight out of UTEP, I don't know where the playing time is for Jon Rhattigan here. I think Jon Rhattigan could find himself as the odd man out. And here's some more money we're talking about potentially saving here. Close to $3 million if you move on from Jon Rhattigan. And it gets better. A dead cap hit of zero. Don't have to pay him a single thing. Doesn't count against the cap. You can let him go, and it doesn't hurt you at all. This one, to me, makes a ton of sense to say goodbye to Jon Rhattigan and go with your youth movement, your new talent there at the inside linebacker position. Who's a player the Seahawks should cut? Here's your chance to be critical here on Seahawks Today. Give me a name or two that you think the Seahawks should ultimately move on from. Way in the comment section, let us know who that is. For the best Seahawks coverage you won't find anywhere else, you got to subscribe to Seattle Seahawks Today, as we're bringing you daily news and rumors. Anytime that there's breaking news, we're going to bring you a video as quick as we can here, whether it's free agent signings or trades, injury news. We're talking everything from OTAs to mini camps, counting you down to training camp and more. It's all right here on Seattle Seahawks Today. Help us reach our next milestone, 52.5 thousand subscribers here on the channel. Subscribe now for free, youtube.com/Seahawks TV. Next up, this one I think is going to shock some people. Nick Harris, who the Seahawks just signed this offseason from the Cleveland Browns at the center position, makes our list of potential cap casualties for the Seahawks here. Bottom line, I don't know how Nick Harris is going to see much playing time, because the Seahawks have committed to Olu Oluwatimi as their starting center. It doesn't seem like Ryan Grubb plans to use a fullback in this offense, which is the position Nick Harris primarily played when he was with the Cleveland Browns. And when you look at what they've invested at the guard position, I think that it might end up being a case where Nick Harris is the odd man out here. Now, you're not saving a ton of money, just $1.51 million. And then you're looking at a dead cap hit of $1 million here. But here's one thing I would think about with Nick Harris. Just because you cut him doesn't mean you're completely saying sayonara here. We could end up seeing a situation where Nick Harris hangs around on the practice squad, and then potentially you elevate him to the active roster when need be, or if that situation were to arise. But don't be shocked if Nick Harris is one that ends up getting cut, despite being one of the newest members of the Seahawks. Last one on this list. A lot of Seahawks fans have been clamoring for this for a while, and that's Dee Eskridge, the wide receiver who's had just a disappointing tenure in Seattle, to say the least, there with how things have gone the last several seasons, as he's really struggled to even get playing time. He's dealt with injuries. He had some off-the-field concerns. And with other young receivers that had developed much quicker than him, like JSN and Jake Bobo and others, there's not much of a need for Dee Eskridge. The one thing that he's kind of holding on to is the fact that he can be a special teams guy of sorts, right? We know his abilities when it comes to kick and punt returns. We know about where the league is going with this new kickoff rule and such. He could potentially be used that way. But is it worthwhile? You're looking at potentially saving $1 million if you move on from him. And then his dead cap hit, not terrible as well. $422,000 would be the dead cap hit there. So let's ask you, should the Seahawks cut Dee Eskridge? Let me know what you think. C for cut, K for keep. Weigh in the comment section and let us know. Thanks for joining us here on this edition of Seahawks Today. Lock us in, subscribe to the channel. Never miss a moment. We'll see you next time here on Seahawks Today.